This video contains spoilers for Undertale. If you haven't played Undertale yet, how? Why? You can keep watching if you want, but I'm going to spoil everything in Undertale just to spite you. Why haven't you given Toby Fox your money? I really like Undertale. Undertale and Lisa are the best RPGs I think I've ever played, and the fact they came out within a year of each other completely astounds me. Hold on, did they actually do that? Yeah, they did, okay. I could talk for hours about all the things I like about it and think are cool and funny, the neat little touches like how the puzzles in Hotland are very obviously training simulators for killing a human, complete with the same heart-breaking apart sound effect. Or the way they run so much with Asgore's terrible ability to come up with names for things that Asriel, which should be an incredibly cool and prophetic name, is also very clearly Asgore, combining his and his wife's names. Or the way the True Lab is a metaphor for Toby Fox's own past experiments, featuring aspects of the edgy Earthbound hack he made as a teenager and doesn't really like being associated with anymore. Or the way that sign says 3 out of 4 blocks recommend you push them because one of the 4 you encounter in the game doesn't like it. Or the increasingly elaborate mouse cheese bits, or the way the heart you use to select menu options sprouts legs and runs away when you pick run away, or the pacing and timing of just a regular old bucket of snails, or the way the king really does trim a hedge in the shape of Papyrus's face at the end, or crime! Undertale is a never-ending trip to Funtown, but I'm not really here to talk about that. After all, if you've already played it, you've noticed a bunch of these for yourself, if not more, and doubtlessly watched other people tell you about them too. In fact, a lot of videos about Undertale have kind of already covered the same ground over and over in agonizing re-explanations of the plot or engaging in bizarre theorizing about minor plot content. Why is Sans called Sans? Could it be because he's sans his skin? Because he's a skeleton? Go to lootcrate.com and enter the offer code LifeIsPain to get a discount on meaningless trash that won't fill the hole inherent to the self. And why is Undyne all fish themed but she uses energy spears? That's not what fish do. Clearly Undyne is actually descended from some other energy spear throwing fish themed character from some other game. By the way, have I talked about Five Nights at Freddy's yet?
But hey, that's just a theory.
I want to talk about stuff that seems to not really be discussed as much. The ideas the game puts forward, its philosophical I'm sorry, look, let's start at the beginning. What is Undertale about? Games can be about different things to different people, but for me at least, it's about fandom. It's about cultures that form around various kinds of media and a frank examination of the effects of those cultures. This is most personified in the character whose beliefs, ideas, and choices the game spends the most time exploring, Dr. Alphys. Initially, she seems super obsessed with anime, almost as a joke in itself, like, haha, isn't it silly that this person enjoys dumb cartoons and has opinions about them? But the story digs a little deeper. It becomes clear that Alphys is a tremendously anxious person for justifiable reasons who worries that they aren't a good person and aren't capable of helping others. She worries a lot about even calling you to give you advice. But when she starts actually talking about a show she likes, she can't contain herself. She goes on tirades about the sequel, interrupts the quiz battle to talk about an episode, and gets so wrapped up in explaining the story to you as she recommends it that she starts interrupting her own dialogue boxes. Anime is, instead of this silly thing for idiots, an opportunity to connect with someone else. She recounts that the character doesn't fit in because she has cat ears, which isn't normal in that world, but eventually discovers her friends accept her for who she is, mirroring her own desire to be accepted, something she's initially afraid could never happen. It takes the course of the entire game for her to realise that people care about her. The game fully recognises that enjoying something, even something objectively dumb like anime, which it is, it's really dumb, is done for understandable reasons because it communicates something meaningful to us. It's proof we're capable of empathy, that we see ourselves in something, even if that something is a video game or a cartoon about a girl with cat ears. The character that became Metaton met Alphys through a human fan club. They forged a friendship out of a mutual enjoyment of something, even though Metaton clearly thinks very little of Alphys' taste in media. She's a dork and she's obsessed with these awful cartoons, but she's funny. I want to see her again. When Undyne is confessing her feelings for Alphys, it doesn't turn out she likes her because she secretly also likes anime or anything like that. In fact, she seems to hate it, but she simply loves how much she cares about the things she likes. So through this character, we learn a pretty important and straightforward message. Fandom can be a good thing. The game is careful to point out that these people are good not in spite of, but because they're capable of caring about something that might seem silly and pointless to someone else. What's more human than being capable of falling in love with something? It would have been so easy to make dumb jokes about people who like anime too much being silly or weird and needing to tone it down to be accepted and fit in, but it turns it into a heartwarming story about how it's this passion for things that makes us what we are. Alphys learns to be okay with liking what she likes and get over the need to judge herself for it based on what other people might think. It's easy to be dismissive of people who like something we don't. It's hard to appreciate a person's capacity for love if it isn't over something we love. And yeah, I made fun of game theory earlier, but you know what? If you like thinking about game lore and looking for possible, though tenuous, connections between Undertale and Earthbound, good. I'm glad you sincerely care about something enough to do that. I think it's dumb to do that and you're stupid, but I love you because the ability to care is inherently good. I really, really like the Star Wars prequels, and now you have no choice but to love me for it. Gotcha! To put it in layman's terms, and let's be honest, I am a rather lame man, Undertale is a game about how it's good to really like spaghetti. I'm more of a tagliatelle person, but you do you, cartoon skeleton. So far, Undertale's a game about how cool fan culture can be. But it doesn't just say, hey, like what you want, it's good to like things, and then go home. The game's got an idealistic and oddly rare message, but the game manages to be very careful about how it presents this point. Toby Fox himself has a history of making fun of dumb aspects of fandoms, even going so far as to compose the parody Homestuck rock opera The Baby Is You, about a character somehow giving birth to their best friend to satire the bizarre limits of weird Homestuck fanfiction. It's possible to go about liking something in a way that's detrimental. In the early game, Toriel won't let you try to leave the ruins and will actively avoid answering questions about leaving, but if you press her on it, she decides to destroy the exit, ensuring you can never leave. It's clear she cares a lot about you and protecting you from harm, but this isn't a completely good thing, is it? She's so dedicated to protecting you from possible danger that she's prepared to make sure you never even run the risk of encountering it again. The outside world is scary and full of risks, so she decides you're better off never going out into it. Toriel isn't a bad person, she's just someone who cares about protecting someone precious to her in a way that might be bad for them both. Let's talk about Asriel. As the final boss and arguable antagonist, it stands to reason that the game is ultimately about finding ways to challenge his perspective on the world. So, what is his perspective? At one point he openly addresses the main character/player, saying that this whole story is a game, and winning it, essentially, is putting an end to the game. He fears the player being done with them and moving on. His objective is to keep you playing forever, so he dangles a happy ending in front of you, even going so far as to give you advice on how to get better endings, just to keep you going. Once he becomes all-powerful, he doesn't destroy the world. He fights you, over and over. It becomes clear over the course of the final battle that all he really wants is to be with his lost sibling, forever, and that means doing everything he can to ensure this fight never ends. You literally can't die at this point. It's the Toriel encounter all over again. The true run of the game largely involves helping Alphys and Asriel get over something terrible that happened and learn to interact with the world again while being completely accepting of the things they care about. There's a third Toriel-esque character in the game, trying to keep someone contained just so they don't have to risk things changing. Think about when the barrier is destroyed. Finally, everyone is on the title screen, it's playing the happiest tune, and you can talk to everyone in the world and give them a final goodbye. Everyone has new dialogue about their impending freedom. And then you leave. You get a really cool sequence of all the characters enjoying their freedom in the outside world. You see what everyone's up to, you get attacked by the special thanks in the hardest challenge in the game, and then it finally ends. It's over. The ending is so final that you can't leave this screen. You have to close the game to move on. But what happens if you reopen it? Asriel turns up. He points out that everyone's gone and got their happy ending, but you still have the power to ruin it. If you load your save, everyone's back in the underground, not even aware they had their freedom ripped away from them. The game remembers, though. The title screen is empty, and the music is gone. The game is judging you for returning to a world you should have been done with. The player becomes the final analogue to Asriel, someone who likes the world so much that they want to go back to it again. In my Braid video, which statistically none of you watched, I talked about the idea of anti-completionism, for wanting to see everything in a game just because you can, for the sake of having done it. Undertale does this by placing a moral weight on the decision to replay the game. You're literally reversing time and re-trapping everyone. You're put in the position of the game's own tragic villain, someone who enjoys something so much that they'd make things worse for others, trap them in the underground again just so you can relive the experience of meeting them, befriending them, and setting them free. Interestingly enough, at the very end of the game, if you choose to stay with Toriel at the end, she all but chastises you, pointing out that if you were really so content with just being with her, you would never have left. And this good thing would never have happened. You'd have just been closed off eating butterscotch pie and reading the same books forever. Then she literally handholds you out of the game. By doing this, Undertale is subtly criticising you for being a fan of Undertale. It's good to like games, but isn't there something a little bad about wanting to stay in it forever? If you keep getting neutral endings, Flowey eventually just asks, don't you have anything better to do? Something better to do than completing a game over and over just to see what would happen? And in his other form, in the best ending, before you leave the underground, if you walk all the way to the first screen of the game, Asriel's right there. And if you keep talking to him over and over, eventually, he just keeps asking the same question. The Genocide Run is essentially one long commentary on how the player is only doing this because they want to see what happens. They want more Undertale content. And this is what makes them the ultimate monster, not some simplistic bloodlust or hatred for all life. This is also Asriel's reasoning for being so antagonistic as Flowey. He's done everything so many times that his sheer boredom has led him to want to see the end of everything just because it's the last thing left to do. If you do the Genocide Run a second time, the character, who incidentally are named Brexit, openly recommends that you really ought to do something else. You are racked with a perverted sentimentality. I think moments like these are the ultimate point of the game's message. That fandom is fine, after all it's ultimately an excuse for real contact with other people. But it's important not to lose sight of the reasons why you enjoy something. Undertale's harshest criticism isn't that people are stupid for making this mistake. In fact, it's important to appreciate the good in people even if you think they are stupid. It merely points out that it's possible to love something unwisely. It's for that reason that I probably won't play Undertale again after making this video. In his review of Undertale, Austin Walker wrote that Undertale has a resonant message that we can love games without feeling the need to wring every last ounce of content out of them. Luckily for me, at least one other game critic noticed the message, and they happen to be the best one, who's always right. Getting too attached to a game about dealing with the problems that come with certain kinds of attachment seems like it would be missing the point. If you tell Toriel you have places to go, she just says, see you around. The ending seems slightly anticlimactic, but isn't that what life is like? There are memes out there about people talking about how cool it is to be raised by anime, and all the cool lessons they learned. It's really easy to make fun of this notion, but can you imagine a world where people really did act like the heroes of the stories they liked, applied all the lessons they'd learned? I think that would be a magical world to live in. So you're right, I do have better things to do. See you around, Undertale. Thanks for watching. This video hasn't been very funny because I'm nowhere near as funny as Undertale and I thought it would be wrong to even bother to try. I started writing and a bunch of real feelings fell out onto my keyboard. I'd like to say a very special thanks to Renslayer, Rikami, Robert Phillips. I moved the credits around so that I could thank Samael in this video. Scartharax, Lord of the Roaches! Scott Guertin? Oh god. Oh, I'm gonna look up how his name's pronounced right now. I'm sure he's mentioned it somewhere. Okay, I don't know, I can't find it. So, Scott Guertin or Gertin or Gertin? I think it's all of them. If it's another one, I'm so sorry. Sean Higgins, Siegfried Pinzer, Sticky Hunter, Thad Wazalewski, Two-Armed Blue and Red Drapes, the S is gone now, Zachariah Taylor, iDragonarian, and I Am Turnip. Oh, I know that look. That's the look of someone who just realised that I cooked an entire plate of spaghetti just for a one-off joke in a video mostly centred around analysing the tastes of a fictional lesbian dinosaur scientist. But it turns out that kind of thing's alright. Undertale told me so.